Hi, I'm Christopher John Farley, a senior editor at the Wall Street Journal. Welcome to the WSJ Café. Today my guests are Roma Downey and Mark Burnett. They're a power couple, they're TV producers, and they've got a new show coming out on CBS called The Dovekeepers, a great miniseries, and also another miniseries on NBC, A.D.THE, The Bible Continues. Mark and Roma, thanks for coming to the Wall Street Journal.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
We're so glad to be here. All three of us, Roma, me, and my beard.
Now, I was going to ask you, let's kick off with that question. I mean, is the beard to sort of celebrate the release of these biblical projects?
Well, you know, I'm trying to get a part. I can't act, but I'm thinking my wife might notice the beard at some point and give me a toga.
Of course, you're both behind executive producing The Bible, which is a big hit on television, a mini-series. You're doing the sequel, A.D. The Bible Continues. Roma, my question for you is, when you do these kinds of faith-based projects, is your first aim to evangelize or to entertain?
I guess our aim is to tell the story in a relatable way so that it touches people's hearts. I think our job is to clear the pathway that we have told the story in an exciting and engaging way, creating a humanity to these characters, remembering they didn't know they were in the Bible, they don't know the outcome, and oftentimes these people are flawed in the Bible. And so I think that the way we have presented A.D. The Bible Continues will resonate and will get the country in conversation about faith.
Then, of course, The Dovekeepers tells the story of the siege of Masada. This story was told before in the 1981 miniseries, Masada. Your story is based on the book, The Dovekeepers by Alice Hoffman. What are you doing differently to the story? What are you bringing to the story that people maybe haven't heard before?
Well, you know, I think that oftentimes history is written by men, about men. And what was interesting to me about Alice Hoffman's novel is that it tells the story of Masada, but it allows us to experience it through the lives of these incredible, courageous, if slightly unconventional women. And I thought that was a new take on it. Also, I think that many Americans don't actually know the story of Masada. And my husband and I had the good fortune to travel to Israel a few years ago. And we had the opportunity to visit Masada and to hear the story and to be deeply touched by it. So when I read this novel, it really resonated with me.
Now, Mark, there is some sex in this movie, in The Dovekeepers.
I thought you were going to say in my marriage. I was going to say, I hope so.
Well, yeah, I hope so. That's a whole nother conversation. But did you ever, and because you're trying to draw on a faith-based audience, was there ever a point where you thought, are we going too far with some of the sex scenes here? I mean, and some of the scenes kind of really put the biblical in biblical here.
I don't think we're calling upon a faith-based audience. I mean, Dovekeepers is a romantic historical mini-series. Anyone who's read the book by Alice Hoffman realize it's got violence in it, it's got sex in it. It's just a great story based around a historical time. I think the real benefit that's going to come out of Dovekeepers is that millions of Americans will have heard of Masada for the first time. And I think it's a very, very critical time in history. A story of persecution. This is being reflected today around the world, in Nigeria, today in Syria, in Iraq. You can go on and on, name country after country.
Now, of course, you have the other miniseries, A.D. The Bible Continues. For that miniseries, how important is it to you as executive producers to stay as close to the biblical accounts as possible?
I think that, you know, bringing both the Bible series and A.D. The Bible Continues to the screen is a big responsibility, one that we took very seriously. And we worked with scholars and theologians and pastors to make sure that when we deal with Scripture, that we do so you know, accurately and authentically.
And we love it, right? I mean, really, I mean, you got to know, this, we produce tons of shows. I mean, I'm sure everyone here watches a lot of shows we produce. This is beyond the show. This is a movement. This is a story where it started with 12 guys, the apostles. There were 11 because Judas killed himself. Matthias was elected. Those 12 became 2.5 billion people. And that's the responsibility we have.
your production of A.D. has a very diverse range of actors. Tell me about why that was important to you.
Well, I think it was important to us that we brought in a diverse cast to reflect the world that we live in. We wanted people to be able to tune in and see themselves in this story. We believe that this region at that time was on the trade routes, and there would have been people of many different skin colors, and we wanted our cast to represent that. Our John the Beloved is an African actor, Mary Magdalene, James, Philip, and so on, and Jesus is Argentinian. We even got an Irishman in there, didn't we?
There you go for diversity.
Now, you mentioned to me before we began taping this segment how well the Bible did on Telemundo. Is part of the reason why you cast such an internationally rounded cast because you know it'll help the Bible travel more?
No, because actually, one other thing, in addition to what Roma just accurately said, that we're very involved with the African American churches, you know that, as well as Hispanic churches. And we had massive, massive African American support for the Bible. But our friends who run those churches did say to us, come on guys, you could have done a bit better on the diverse casting. The Bible's a little white. That's why also when we made A.D., we were very conscious to open up the casting to a wider net. We still cast the best actors, but we opened up into a wider net. So you have, as Roma said, major roles played by Africans. But the Bible, which just did record numbers on Telemundo this week, as 2 years later, reversion with a Spanish dub, was the highest rated show on Telemundo ever. And that had that too white a cast. What that shows you is that the story transcends everything.
Now, I want to talk a little bit more about casting, because I find it interesting that you've had to cast the role of Jesus 3 times recently. You know, obviously for the Bible, and then again for A.D. The Bible Continues. And how do you go about finding the perfect actor to play Jesus, since no one's more qualified to do this now than you guys, having done it 3 times?
Well, you know, it's always a challenge, I think. It's the, you want to get, you know, the right qualities of strength, of compassion, of, you know, someone who can exude charisma and be in charge and yet have a gentleness. And we've been very fortunate in the actors that we have found. In A.D. The Bible Continues, we have Argentinian actor Juan Pablo de Pache, and he brings a real strength to the role during the crucifixion sequence, which is the most challenging sequence for any actor, I think, physically, emotionally, spiritually. Hard for everybody present, but for him in particular. We flew in to be with him, his own mother. And of course, from scripture, we know that at the foot of the cross stood John the disciple, Mary Magdalene, and Jesus' mother, Mary. For the filming that day, we had Juan Pablo's mother off to the side to be present for him, and she, you know, shared with us that it was just the most incredibly moving, profound time for her to see her own son in this role.
So you've done the Bible, you've done A.D. The Bible Continues, which is going to be airing. And you're also working on BEN-HUR. And before we started filming, Mark mentioned that you're about to film the iconic chariot races from that project. What will this new BEN-HUR have that the original BEN-HUR from the 50s didn't have?
Well, the interesting thing, by the way, right, we have teenagers. I'm not kidding you. Our teenagers are very smart, highly educated, and pretty cool. They said to us, what a great idea to make a movie with chariot racing. And we're like, are you guys kidding? They're like, no, that's a great idea.
We said we're making Ben-HUR, and they said Ben-who?
Right. So what does that tell you? Something great, right? For an older generation, they can't wait to see, is it messed up? Is it as good? Is it better? And for a young generation, whoa, chariot racing in a movie? There's a whole audience that have never, ever heard of it, seen it, thought about it. So isn't that exciting?
It sounds exciting to me. So, well, I want to thank you both for coming to the Wall Street Journal. Roma Downey, Mark Burnett, and the shows are A.D. The Bible Continues and the Dovekeepers. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.